So today I'm going to prove to you that before an agent has even come out, we can prove whether or not they will be meta. And really the genesis for this video is this tweet from Kaplan, the Sentinels coach. We had to get Sentinels involved in the video somehow, and this is how we're doing it. So the only viable single duelists in pro play have the ability to dive out of chokes, ISO doesn't. It's already hard for an agent to earn a flex spot in double controller meta. In a single controller comps, that flex spot can go to all the initiators, duelists, and Sage. And so here is every single Valorant agent listed in their class, but when we're thinking about making a team comp, normally we're going to want a pretty balanced team comp, and so for that we're going to have one duelist, one initiator, one sentinel, one controller, and then one flex spot. But really, when I'm talking about one duelist, what I really mean, as Kaplan kind of mentioned there, is a movement duelist. A duelist who can break crosshairs as we enter the site. A duelist who can get closer to that player who we've used more supportive utility on, right? Like flashes and stuns. We need someone to close that gap to go and get those kills. And so let's cross out those agents. I would say that it's Jett, Neon, Raze, and I will even include Yoru. I think Yoru is a bit more of a special case, but we will include him as well. And then we have one initiator, but what I mean by initiator really is a recon initiator. An initiator who has some kind of drone ability to re-clear angles and is just better at getting information for the team. And for that we will cross out Fade, Sky, and Sova. Now you could include Gecko in this, but for me the Dizzy and the Wingman don't quite count as enough of a drone to reliably clear enough angles. And then we have one Sentinel, but by Sentinel what I really mean is one Trap Sentinel. A Sentinel who can give us some passive info somewhere on the map, and so for that really I mean Chamber, Cypher, and Killjoy. And then we have one Controller. Now when it comes to one Controller, I do just mean any of the controllers, right? And Viper is a bit of a special case that we will get to, but really, for the most part, I do just mean one controller. And then finally, we come to this flex spot. And for this flex spot, we're really talking about everything else, right? We're talking about all the other agents like ISO, Phoenix, Reyna, Breach, Gecko, KO, Deadlock, Sage. But of course, it is more than that as well, as Kaplan kind of alluded to in his tweet, that it really is all of the duelists, right? We've seen Raze and Jett be played together. We've seen Raze and Neon get played together on Fracture, for instance. We've seen Raze and Yoru get played together, or Jett and Yoru on Pearl as well, you know, be played on some maps as well. So really, it's all the duelists. And it's kind of probably Sky as well that you could include in there. And it's probably Viper as well that you could include in there as well for this flex role. And so that means we have 14 agents that are all at some point or another competing for this one role. And that is a ton more than, for instance, the movement duelist, right? If you are a movement duelist, you have 3 other competitors. If you are a recon initiator, you have 2 other competitors. If you are a trap sentinel, you have 2 other competitors. It's not quite the same. And of course, this problem is only going to get worse as time goes on as well, because when you think about it, when a new agent gets released, what are the chances that it is a movement duelist or a recon initiator or a trap sentinel, right? We're probably going to get those kind of agents once every 2 to 3 years, maybe, coming out in the game. But what are the chances that they are any duelist or certain types of initiator or non-trap sentinels or maybe even certain types of controllers like Viper as well? The likelihood of those kind of agents coming out is much, much higher, which just increases the amount of agents that can only fit into this one role. And we very much have seen that happen this year, where the 3 agents released this year in Gecko, Deadlock, and now ISO are all competing for that flex role rather than anything else. And that maybe brings up a point about why, particularly for Gecko and Deadlock, they perhaps have felt a bit underwhelming, because in terms of the top level of the game where the metas are created, they're just not that valuable in terms of what they want to do, and ISO will be much the same. Now, ISO will almost certainly get picked more in ranked because he is a duelist and he helps you get kills and then get more kills, which is what people generally like to do in ranked. So I'm sure in ranked he probably will fare better than a Gecko or a Deadlock has. But still, in terms of actually the meta and being a popular pick everywhere, that is not going to happen. And this problem wasn't nearly that bad at the start of the year. If we take out ISO and we take out Gecko and we take out Deadlock, all of a sudden if we look at those agents that are purely only flex agents that can only really ever go into that slot, we're only looking at Phoenix, Reyna, Breach, KO, and Sage. We're only looking at 5 agents, 2 of which in Breach and KO do see quite a bit of pro pick rate anyway. And then for the other 3 in Phoenix, Reyna, and Sage, we're talking about some of the more popular ranked agents, especially with Reyna and Sage, arguably the 2 most popular ranked agents to play across all ranks. And so at the start of this year, this wasn't really a problem. There were much fewer agents that only fit into this one niche anyway, and most of them saw play either in pro play or in ranked, and so had their kind of space in the game. But now, with the release of Gecko, Deadlock, and ISO this year, we're now starting to get agents that don't really have a place in the game at this point, and don't really see a lot of play either in ranked or in pro play. And so this is where I think you can start to become maybe a little concerned about where Valorant goes in terms of its design. We've seen in other games, other Riot games like League of Legends, that of course they've got so many characters in that game that there are, you know, literal like 50, 60, 70 characters that barely see any play both in pro play or ranked. They basically don't exist for the majority of the time. Now, of course, Valorant isn't going to get anywhere close to that in terms of the numbers anytime soon, and probably ever. But I think you can start to see that there could be some problems here of already there's starting to become some agents that don't have a space in the game. And as more agents get added, that's only going to get worse and worse. And we start wondering, like, when does it become too much? Do Riot have a plan for what's going to happen when there becomes a certain amount of agents and we decide, like, hey, now there's just like 10 agents in the game that aren't doing anything. Like, why are they even there, right? Is that a problem, or is that just something we'll have to learn to deal with? And so I'm very interested to see what people think about this and how Riot might go about fixing it in some way, right? Will they have a hard cutoff for agents? I kind of doubt it. Will they rotate agents? Probably not. You know, will they just keep designing agents and just will have to live with a ton of them not really being that useful in the game? Maybe that's the way we're going to go, given League of Legends and the way that that game has gone. Perhaps, but I wouldn't say that that's great game design, personally. But I'm interested to see what you guys think in the comments down below.